visiting our YouTube channel or by listening back at ttradio.org. Don't forget to like and subscribe to enjoy more live education conversation from TTR. We hope you enjoy this show.
Outstanding and world-class vision and world-class this.
I'm a real leadership geek, honestly. I've spent my whole career reading books and chatting to people.
I just find the whole thing and the announcement, the way it's been announced, bizarre.
If you could move away from a model where teachers are so intensely focused.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Teacher Talk Radio, where we talk about everything to do with education and provide a platform for teachers and educators to be able to share their experiences. I'm your host, Mehmet, who's head of maths in one of the London schools, and our guest today is the George Macmillan. Hello, George.
The George Macmillan. Oh, I do like that, Mehmet. How are you?
Well, the reason why I said the George Macmillan is because just before the program, actually, I didn't want to find out much about you, but then I looked on LinkedIn and the responsibilities you have and the things you have achieved up to this point. I'm just going to read them out. Assistant Director, Executive Coach, Chairman of Leader Being, helping school leaders develop behavioral intelligence. That is quite an achievement. And I was thinking to myself, how a human being can actually be able to do all this at this age. You have achieved a very, very big responsibilities here. So I think I'm just gonna hand it over to you to just probably explain to us that how you have achieved all this up to this point.
Well, I'm actually 75 years old, so I just look good, for 75. No, I like being busy, and I'm married to an absolute superhero woman who basically makes me work really hard and makes me look good. Behind a successful man is an even more successful woman. So, yeah, look, I some of it's right place, right time. Some of it is just some of the great training and great experiences I've had. I am very driven and I'm very ambitious. I like working hard. I get bored very easily, so I don't like sitting still. I like having great conversations that move people from A to B. I happen to be part of a federation that I really believe in, and I've been lucky at the right place, right time. I was 33 when I first became a head teacher, which I chronically wasn't ready for, but managed not to stuff it up too badly. And kind of the rest is history. So I oversee 10 schools, 10 secondary schools in East London and Essex. And this is the first year I've ever not taught. I've taught for 25 years as an English teacher, and I just couldn't make it work this year, just because sometimes don't even know which school I'm driving to in the morning. I just got on the M25 and drive, and then we'll see what emergency kind of comes up. I think there's 1,500 staff.
Yes. Yeah.
And the wheels are always coming off somewhere in that kind of big an organization. So, so I'm actually hoping to get back to teaching again next year because I really, really miss it. And then at nighttime, I've got a 17-year-old daughter who's just finishing year 12. I've got twin boys who are just finishing year 11 in their school. And if you hear arguing and faces being smashed and swearing and fighing, that's going to be my background. Twin boys upstairs who love shouting at each other. And so I've got the three of those: a wife, a dog, 2 cats. And a busy life, and I'm the chairman of Leader Being, which is my wife's company, which is predominantly it's a leadership development consultancy, most of which is done in the city in sort of C-suite, KPMG type bank, Royal Bank Scotland, I guess, but Bank of England and sort of big companies. But my job as the chairman is to keep reminding everyone that teachers deserve the kind of leadership development opportunities at that kind of quality that a top banker might get without even blinking. and to make sure they can get that at prices that schools can actually afford and logistics that schools can actually deal with. So I kind of bang that as a kind of voluntary role, which doesn't pay me for it, unfortunately. But I think it's really important that I'm helping schools access the stuff that we do in Leader Being, because it's really cool.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting that you said that this is the only year that you haven't actually taught. I remember meeting you when you were the head of our school, and when I first met you, you were marking your year 11 books, and it was a shock to my system to see a head teacher who was marking books and just getting ready for his lesson. And you have been doing all this and teaching because you definitely have a strong passion for teaching as well, which is absolutely amazing and unheard of.
I'm a big believer in, hey, listen, it takes all sorts. So the older I get, they realize that there's more than one way to skin a cat. However, in general, I am a big believer that the head teacher is the head teacher, and they don't have to be the best teacher in the school, but they should be one of the best teachers in the school. They should be modeling what it looks like teaching under pressure, and really enjoying their job. They should be modeling, like, enjoying the company of teenagers. So you'll have heard me say this before, Mehmet, I'm sure, but if you don't like teenagers and you don't like working with teenagers, then you're in the wrong job and you're sure as hell in the wrong school. Teenagers are, I know they're annoying and they smell and they're ungrateful and they're sometimes badly behaved and they're annoying and sometimes they're hard to like, but they are also wonderful, and it's such a joy to spend time with them, and because you can have such an influence. It's great. Love it.
That is great. So my reflection to all of this was that obviously you are in charge of many schools now, and you go into schools and you fine tune things, or sometimes you just change everything if need be, depending on what you see. And regardless of what school you go to, I know from the history of all your achievements up to this point, when you go into a school, you make massive changes and they become successful. So my first question to you is, if someone was to walk into any of your schools without knowing your policies, what would they feel that makes them turn around and think, actually, they have a really strong leadership in this place?
So I've got a clear answer for that, but I'm going to caveat it when you are at my level. So above, sorry, sounds really arrogant, doesn't it? But I'm now above head teacher level, I guess, in the hierarchy. And so it's not necessarily about me, my leadership in any of my schools. So what's really important is that it's the head teacher's school. So my job now that I'm at this point in my career is to support the head teachers creating a school that's really, really special. And all of my schools feel very different. So if you go to literally, so two of my schools are only 10 minutes apart, and they will feel very, very different. And the one that used to be my school, so Harris Academy, Greenwich, no longer feels like my school as in George Macmillan School. It will feel like Jack Doherty's school, I hope. There will still be lots of stuff that will be remnants of me, because I trained Jack and I still line manage Jack, of course, but it should feel like his school. But the thing that you'll notice about a great school is, as soon as you walk into reception, like I genuinely think schools have, let's call it a heartbeat. Schools have a heartbeat that you can sense as soon as you walk in, whether you're a parent or whether you're, experienced people like you and me. You just feel what it feels like. And a special measure school also when you walk in, right? It feels loose. There's crap everywhere. There's boxes everywhere, and there's deliveries that haven't been taken anywhere. There's paper lying around. You look into reception, the receptionist looks absolutely harassed. There's not enough people on. You're made to wait. The sign-in screen doesn't work. They don't know you're coming for a start, even though you were booked in. They're not smiley and welcoming and just chilled out and cool. Everyone feels pressure. Everyone feels sort of slightly on edge. And And I mean, that sounds like an extreme picture I'm painting, but so many schools are like that. Like they just don't get it right from the very first phone call. Like when you phone a school, what does the voice sound like? So it's the little things. So then they buzz you through and you get taken up the stairs or wherever the office is that you're going to. So the door's open. Like, what does that feel like? Does the school feel calm? Does it feel purposeful? I don't need to see every child pen poised. Schools are schools, and tough schools will always be tough schools, right? We serve the catchments we serve. So, but it's how those kids are being dealt with. It's the tone of voice with which they're being dealt with. Even if a kid's getting a good old fashioned row, as I might call it, what is the social interaction between, let's say, the head teacher and a kid who's getting a proper good old fashioned row in the head teacher's office, let's say, that the strength of that relationship should still be there. It should be like the row that I'll give my twin boys, which will be stern but full of love and admiration at the same time. And I don't mince my words with my boys. I'm strict to my boys, but I still love them. And obviously I love school kids slightly differently than obviously my own children, but it's the same kind of concept, right? It's all about relationship building. I should see great relationships with staff. I should see staff holding the line. I should hear laughter. I shouldn't see everyone like just all stressed out and like rushing around the place feeling all stressed. It should just feel good, man. And it's not rocket science, except it kind of is. It takes a lot to get there. There's 1,000 moving parts it takes to get there, and you can lose it quite quickly.
Yeah, that's great. This actually makes me think that there are some long-standing practices in schools which could damage all of these positive things that you're talking about. And I know you went into some schools and there had been some decisions that you've made with these long-standing practices that we're doing in our profession. And I just wanted to know what gave you the confidence to question those long-standing practices and you made those changes.
So I think first and foremost, I think people should find themselves a great mentor. So I was really lucky. I sort of fell in with one. So because when I first moved down from Scotland, so I've been teaching for 6 years up in Scotland, a really, really tough school. And looking back, like I really enjoyed my time there, but SLT weren't there. It was an 8-story tower block, 2,500 kids, right? So a massive school. And it was wild. It was wild. We used to say that the SLT had vertigo because you never saw them above the third floor. There was no behavior systems at all, right? So if a kid threw a chair at you, right, or swore at you, which was common, like there was no on-call system, nothing. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but we all had blackboards. There was no overhead projectors even. So good old-fashioned blackboards and chalk. I was considered like this ambitious young gun because I used colored chalk, and this was considered like absolutely mind-blowing, right? And anyway, to cut a long story short, I left there after 6 years, a bit burned out, and wanted to leave teaching. Came down to London, and I took this lassie out for a coffee, who was who's a sort of friend of a friend of a friend, who I discovered lived in London. So I wasn't working then. I was doing a bit of supply, just keep my hand in because I was bored. But I wanted to go be a plumber. I don't know why, but someone had said, "Hey, you can make a fortune being a plumber in London." And I'm good with my hands. So anyway, I took her out for dinner, for a drink rather, and she said, "Hey, listen, my boyfriend has just taken over this terrible school out in Essex. He's called Chris. Do you want to meet him? I think he'd be really interested in meeting you." So anyway, that night, Chris Tomlinson phoned me, who is now the CEO of the Co-op Trust. And anyway, so he'd taken over the school as a special manager. So he was like, "All right, mate, all right. Do you want to come and do some supply?"
Yeah,
that's my impression. Yeah, that's my best effort. And
good.
I went and did a day's supply in the school. It was really wasn't in a good place at the time, but I loved that man. Continued to do so, and he became my mentor. So when 6 years later, he was invited to go and be an executive head and take over this failing school called Eltham Green in Southeast London, and he took me over as the head of school. And so, to answer your question directly, how did I have the confidence to make some big decisions? I had him with me 4 days a week for my first year. He was the executive head. Then he dropped down to 2 days for my second year, and then he was gone. So I had this brilliant apprenticeship where, essentially, I suppose in many respects, I was like a vice principal. But I was able to make those calls because I had that sounding board, and like seeing how Chris's brain works is an absolute marvel. And if he ever watches this, he knows that I believe I owe my career to him. And of course, seeing mistakes also, and seeing someone who you greatly admire make mistakes, and you're like, all right, you just clock it. You're like, I wouldn't do it like that, because you would see, he would make a big decision, and then I would implement it, and I would see my job was obviously making it work, and sometimes it really didn't because it was the wrong decision or whatever. But then I would see how he would deal with a decision that's gone bad. So that's also a great experience. And then the last thing I would say on it, I've also had some great training with the coaching programs that I've done, and the accreditations that I've done in the coaching world have really, really helped me think about change management in a way that's quite clinical. Because someone with my kind of profile can tend to just dash towards the new shiny thing, right? You read something in the test, you go, oh, great idea, right, great, I'm going to do that. And so you can end up in a school with just initiative overload. And as I've grown in my career, I've become much calmer with this kind of stuff, and really, really think about what is the actual problem. This is a nod to Ben Keeley, who's essentially the equivalent of me, but in the Futures Trust. And Ben once said to me, stopped me when he used to be my VP and then my head of school. And he was like, George, can I stop you? What is the problem you're trying to fix? That's a great thing, man. Sometimes we don't even know what the problem is we're trying to fix. Too often, and this would be good for people who are listening, like if you've just been given a new remit for September, or you got a promotion for September, our natural human inclination is to go in and change everything, right? And make it our own, and we're going to do all this stuff. A, you have to remember that just causes work for everyone else. And B, before you even do anything, get crystal clear, what is the problem I'm trying to fix? So to come back to your question about how do you make big changes, you get clear on that first of all. What is the problem I'm trying to fix, and then how am I going to fix it?
Yeah, because I remember when it was an amazing thing for me to hear that when you first announced, and we said, right, pause. What's going on? We are not going to mark books anymore. We are going to do book looks instead, because I can see my staff is burning out and we're just constantly marking books for hours on end for no reason. Let's just see how we can actually make this more impactful for our students. And this model could work rather than you guys spending hours and hours of marking books, using different colored pens, green, red, pink, this for this for that. And that was revolutionary in our school. And I think that is a very difficult decision for anyone to make, which was amazing, by the way. So I can't thank you enough for that. And from that point onwards, being a mathematician myself, I could clearly see how the results and impact on our students were actually changing significantly. And thinking back on it, when I hear other schools who are still marking books and their staff are burning out because they're marking books, they're taking books home for their weekend and stuff, that was something that I never even thought of. And you've made that change, and that's amazing. So would you want to just talk to us about that for a little bit and just tell us what made you think? Because that's my perspective of why I thought you did it, because we were all burnt out. We were just trying to mark books. But what made you think actually we can do this instead?
So my one of the things that I think about a lot is not only what's the problem do we need to fix, but what is the highest leverage thing that we need to work on to get better, and that's going to get great outcomes for kids. So there's a book that's actually worth reading. So I think it's called Leverage Leadership, something like that. Anyway, so the thing with marking was around. And by the way, there'll be people watching this if they've tuned in because they're like, oh, I recognize that name, George McMillan. I'll see what he's got to say. And then they'll be like, yeah, but George McMillan made us mark. But yeah, in my early days as a head teacher, I was making people mark because it was new and trendy as well, not only marking every 3 weeks, but then doing the triple marking thing. So then kid would respond to your marking, and then you would respond to the responding of the marking, like round and round you go. And I was forcing staff to do it. And the thing is, it doesn't have no impact, right? It has an impact on learning, even if it's just about accountability and kids knowing, oh, sir's going to mark my book, so I am going to do a bit extra, and I'm going to try, right? And yes, they get feedback. But if you then look at, so what staff are tired and grumpy, and I was looking at, right, why are they tired and grumpy? What are the things that I can control? And one of the things was marking. And then I asked myself an honest question. When is the last time that I did triple marking of my own books and that it was having any impact, right? And to your point about the first time you met me and I was marking my books, right? I would have been definitely reading my books. I would have been marking a few of them. I tend to mark 5 at a time. I kind of mark 5 every week, which means that every month you've got through them. But I suddenly realized that I've not done traditional marking of year 11 books for 2 years, and that I've got the best results in the English department, right? Maybe with the exception of Sue Cable, her and I, this other teacher, we used to be in competition with each other for who could get the highest results. And so therefore it becomes about, right, what is it about book marking that makes a difference? There is something definitely about accountability. When a kid knows you're going to mark their book, they do work harder, and that's true. They do feel valued. So the worst of all worlds, right? And this is where, like, a really, really strong caveat is, you get rid of traditional book marking and you call it responding instead, or book looks, or whatever you want to call it. But what then happens is, the worst of all worlds is the teacher never looks in the books, and they don't mark the books, and they don't respond to the books, and they don't do anything with the books. So they don't know where the kids are. The kid knows they're not, sir or miss isn't going to read their books. And so it's just like, that's the worst of all worlds. Forcing your staff, I would argue, forcing your staff to mark their books every 3 weeks and then triple mark them is better than that for the child. Now, of course, the knock-on effect is it's not good for the staff member. And we all hate marking. Well, most of us hate marking. It's boring. Your first 5 books are fine, but after that is soul destroying. And I've marked 100,000 books, I guess, over 25 years. So the key thing is, are you reading the kids' books? That's the key thing. And are you responding to the kids' books? So in my classes, when I'm at my best, right, every single day I will read the top 5 at least, and it gives me a flavor, whatever order they come in, right? I read the top 5, so I know exactly what they've been learning. I know exactly what they're doing. I know what the trends are, and I'm like, right, I need to address that for tomorrow, okay? I also, once a week, I will actually mark 4 or 5 books. Sometimes it's 3 books. In every single lesson, I will either have taken a photo in advance because I'm like, oh my God, that's brilliant, or oh my God, that's terrible. They're all doing that thing. Is it like they were even in the room? It's like I wasn't even there, and I'm a brilliant teacher. I might as well have been standing at a bus stop, right? So I'll take a photo of their work. I'll have it ready on the board, and I'll like, right, let's all look at this because this is what you're all doing, right? Or let's look at this from Harry. Harry's done this. He's brilliant. He's listened. Here's the bit that he's done really, really well, and this is what else. So whatever it is. So although I'm not traditionally marking every week or whatever, I am responding to their work every single period. And it's not more workload, it's actually less. And it's certainly a lot less boring. And then the other thing that I'll do is, during the lesson, I will never sit down. I will be walking around, making sure, obviously I'm helping kids, I'm catching them getting it right. I'm doing some spag marking with my green pen, or whatever. I said I don't care about colored pens, but whatever color I happen to have in my hand. And I'm then grabbing Harry's book, and I'm saying, right, everyone, stop what you're doing. Everyone's wasting their time, so let's just stop. I've clearly taught this really badly because you're all doing the wrong thing. Here's Harry's work. I'll have it on the visualizer, pop it up, and I'll say, like, this is the thing you're all doing. Right, I'll re-explain the thing, whatever it is that I've clearly taught badly and they've not got. Now they've all got it, now they all get it, and now they all do it, right? That's a great use of your time. It's also adaptive teaching in the moment. It's you have to have the bottle to do it while someone's in your room watching your lesson, of course. You have to recognize when it's all going wrong. Like, don't just stand there pretending it's right. Of course, it's even worse if you've not even noticed it's gone wrong. But like, just stop and just go, whoa, guys, this is hopeless. This is rubbish, right? And it's my fault. It's my fault that it's rubbish because I've not taught you properly. Right, let's just do this again. That's the kind of deal. So yeah, I wouldn't want anyone to think that I don't approve of marking. Marking is a thing. let's just not call it marking. Let's call it responding, because there's lots and lots of different ways of doing it. You have to make a kid feel valued. They have to know that you read their work. They have to know how to get better. There has to be moments of interjection and like making the kids change direction slightly, because you read the book, you go, whoa, you need to do this, and they go, oh, thanks, sir, and off they go. Does that answer the question? So it's not just quite as simple as never mark books. It's just respond and respond more.
Respond more, and actually you don't have to go into the cycle of mark the book, give feedback, and then give feedback to feedback, and then give feedback to feedback, which is not
exactly.
which sometimes cannot be.
And where I am now, because of course one of the things you do have to mark is their assessments, right? Or some sort of end point. So actually where we are now is quite interesting in several of my schools. So you've planned in advance, and this would usually be done by the head of department. So let's say, sorry, I keep talking about English just because it's my subject, but let's say you as head of maths, you have planned that year 7 at the end of week 4, let's say, there's a really, really natural end point, and that's when you want to test the kids. And therefore, for the year 7 teachers, that's when they're going to take in their books and put some data on the system, right? But the year 8s might be 2 weeks after that. And so it doesn't all have to be at the same time. And it means that you can, particularly Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4 is slightly more difficult because normally you want a bit more alignment. But Key Stage 3, certainly, there should be freedom, in my opinion, for heads of department to flex, to choose endpoints, to decide in their professional judgment when people are responding to books formally, whether you call that marking or just adding up, doing marking the test, whatever it might be. So yeah, that seems to work really well.
That's great. By the way, guys, for our listeners, I just wanted to mention that this program is sponsored by Hachette Learning, a place for inspiration for teachers, where they provide high quality teaching solutions and research-based books that you can actually just go and read. Please go and check them out. And thanks for them to just providing us for this opportunity. So I'm going to move on to, I'm just going to link this to trust and accountability, because one of the other decisions you made is letting staff leave at, well, I'd say if you finish school at 3:20, letting staff leave at 3:25 or whenever they're done. This signals a high level of trust. And how do you balance that with maintaining strong performance?
I can't bear presenteeism, and you should be able to choose where you do your job. So let's deal with the contractual bit first of all. So a common misunderstanding that what do we call them? Do you want to call them activist teachers? I don't like that because that sounds like pejorative, and I don't mean it in a negative way. But anyway, let's say you're wanting to stand up for your contractual rights in the Burgundy Book and and whatnot, and you're 1265. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
The common misconception of 1265 is that 1265 is the only amount of time that you're prepared to work and that the job takes. The job should fit into 1265 hours, right? That's not what's in the Burgundy Book, and it's not what's in the teacher's agreement. Directed time of 1265 is purely the amount of time that the head teacher can direct where you are and what you're doing when you're where she or he tells you to do, tells you to be. The job itself, obviously, there's prep and there's marking and there's doing school trips and there's all the cool stuff, right? And that's part of the job. And I don't. I start getting sort of slightly cross when we're forgetting that we also get 13 weeks holiday a year. All my pals get 25 days at the most. It's like I get 13 weeks holiday a year. I mean, even me. I mean, I normally work 3 of them, but I mean, I'm getting 10 weeks holiday a year. It's great. So anyway, we know that there's a job to do, so we should allow our staff to go and do it, right? Big believer in that. Again, a bit like the bookmarking conversation, the worst of all worlds is when teachers aren't doing their prep. They're just leaving at the end of the day and arriving for the first bell in the morning, and they're not doing any discretionary effort, and they're not in it for the kids. They're only in it for them and what they can get. And there are obviously, in every profession's got them, right? People want to do the very, very bare minimum for the salary, and they think they're entitled to it. They think it's that is, and they're still angry that they're entitled to this. And I just don't think that's the case. So Trust is on four things, and this isn't my wisdom. Actually, this is something that I've nicked over the years, but I find it really works. So when we're excuse me, so when we're thinking about trust, we should be thinking of four things. The first is it's called the trust equation. If people want to look it up, just Google it. It's great. The common misconception with trust is that leaders say, "I need to be able to trust you more," right? And that's the wrong way of thinking about it. If we all adopted this, which is, I need to get people to trust me more, taking self-accountability for building trust in everyone else's trust in you personally, instead of you trusting everybody else, the teaching world would be completely revolutionized. Trust is based on four things. The first one is credibility. Credibility is based on, do people believe that you can do the things that you say you can do, and that you can do the things you're getting paid to do? If you've got a track record of lousy results, the children don't like you, you're constantly being complained about, the behavior is terrible in your classroom, you're really inconsistent with what you're trying to do, you don't know how to write schemes of work, blah, 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 then obviously your credibility is going to be down the toilet and no one's going to trust you. Now, if that's the case with someone who's then leaving at 3:30 on the bell, I'm a bit like, really? You don't want to stay and be mentored? You don't want to have a conversation about how to get better? You don't want, so that's when I start judging. But someone who's got great credibility, great track record of results, kids really trust them, staff really trust them, they run a happy department, I'm like, yeah, you crack on. And I've always been really public about, you'll have heard me say this before as well, like Wednesday night's date night for me. So I, I don't always manage it, but 9 times out of 10, I have dinner with my wife, we go out for dinner, or when the kids were wee, we had dinner as a family. But sometimes it's just a drink, or it's a walk, or it's something, but that's our time, me and her. And I always say to staff, yeah, Wednesday night, or Tuesday night, go fall in love, go out with your mates, go and do your thing. Like, don't tell me that you don't got time to do anything, because you do. It's about carving it out. The other three, briefly, because I could talk about this all day because I love it so much. The other three things are about reliability. Do you turn up when you say you're going to turn up, or are you always late? Do you make your deadlines? Do you turn up for work, or are you always off? Do you help people when you say you're going to help them, etc.? Right. It's about reliability. Then intimacy is the third one. There are some leaders and some teachers who just cannot stand talking about anything about themselves. So they're like, I have my work life and I have my private life, and the two shall never meet. Right.
Yeah.
And they'll and nobody knows anything about them. They're like robots. Nobody trusts a robot, right? And so what I counsel leaders to do, I talk about leaving the door open just a little bit. People don't know anything about you, they can't trust you. So just talk a little bit. We don't have to be open books, of course. That's like just as bad. But you have to. People have to know you play tennis, or you like. Yeah. I think it's interesting. So I do. I'm the right. I'm 49. I'm just on the cusp of turning
49. I would never tell.
Oh, thanks, Mehmet. I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I'm not very good at it.
Here we go. Another achievement there.
So, and I'm obsessed with it. I do it 3-4 times a week, and do you know that's interesting, right? Makes me human, particularly because I'm not very good at it. But I still do it anyway because I'm so bloody stubborn. I refuse to give it up, even though I shouldn't do it because I'm probably too old. And then the last bit is about branch. I call it branch. I think if people Google it, I think it's called self-orientation in the original model. So I call it branch. Like, do the people you work with know that you're on the same branch as them? So even if, let's say something went wrong, Mehmet, and I'm giving you a hard conversation, right? But I want you to feel like, even though I'm delivering you some hard feedback, I'm on your side. Like, I genuinely want you to get better. I want you to progress. I want you to be brilliant. I want you to be a hero. And I want you to know that I like you. And I want you to know that I want you to be successful. And because of that, here's the unvarnished feedback. So that's what we mean by self-orientation. Are you on everyone's side? It doesn't mean colluding. It doesn't mean being nice necessarily. It does mean telling the truth. It does mean being honest, but it's in service of the other person.
That's great. So many schools, this is what I was thinking about. So the one thing that you mentioned about is I think it's the difference between work-life balance and work-life harmony, and creating a culture. So many schools, from my experience, because I've been to many schools up until I started in our school at Harris Academy, Greenwich. Many schools lean heavily on compliance, policies, checks, scrutiny, and I know you seem to prioritize culture. And what does that look like day to day?
I've got a frog in my throat. Hold on. So I've been talking all day and now I'm talking all night. Culture happens whether you try to have culture or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just happens. And so you might as well choose the kind of culture that you want and then make it happen. So can you verbalize the culture that you want to happen in your department? How do you want people to treat each other? How do you want people to feel? What are the rules? A policy doesn't do that. Policies are there so that everyone is safe. Like everyone knows, like, oh, if this happens, then you do this, and whatever it might be. So you do need policies. You do need compliance. Otherwise, the alarm, has happened in one of my special measure schools that I took over. We had a fire on the first day, whole classroom up in flames.
Oh yeah.
Because the fire alarm system wasn't working properly because no one had tested it. Compliance wasn't right. So we have to have compliance. It is important. But in terms of how a school feels day to day to work in, is all about culture, but it's about the leaders, plural. So leaders throughout the school deciding what that culture is, verbalizing it. Who are we and who are we not? And then getting people on the bus and getting people off the bus and on the bus who fit that culture. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, for example, I know this is probably a bit controversial, but I've been burned too many times by mavericks, inverted commas. Mm-hmm. Because, and I say this as someone who probably is a maverick, right? And I'm sort of ironically anti-authority as well, which is quite, I like my job because I don't really have to answer to very many people anymore, which is quite nice. But anyway, my point being, mavericks are great when they're just being, they're inventive and they're creative and they're, they think out the box. All that stuff's really good. But where mavericks can be dangerous is they're anti-authority. They don't toe the line. They're anti the culture that you're trying to put in place. Mm-hmm. They are a rule unto themselves. So for example, you've got a big thing about, like, I really, really like people being on time. It really annoys me when leaders are late because it signals to your direct reports that they're not as important as you. Like, all that stuff really bugs me because I believe in equity. And mm-hmm. When you're just doing your own things, like, that's not being a maverick. That's breaking the number one rule of leadership. Do you know what the number one rule of leadership is, Mehmet? Number one rule is
the wrong thing in front of George Macmillan.
Yeah. Number one rule of leadership is don't be a dick.
Right.
You are one. It's the one and only time I'll swear in your podcast. And I don't always manage to adhere to my own principle, by the way. But I know that is my number one rule, and I really, really try not to be. Mm-hmm. Mavericks can err that way. When you allow people to act like that, it destroys your culture. So decide what your culture is, verbalize it, talk about it, think about how you're going to get that culture, and then role model it. Like, I role model as flat a hierarchy as we can, in terms of, like, I still believe in hierarchy, and it's not a democracy, right? You don't get a vote to make decisions unless I don't really care what the outcome of the decision is. However, I do want to model listening, because I think listening is important, because it does kind of tend to change the decision a little bit, or it helps decide how to land it properly, or to foresee what the problems might be, or whatever. So I listen all the time. I've got a totally open door. I don't take myself too seriously. I laugh all the time. I take the mickey out of people because I want them to take the mickey out of me. I want it flat like that. We're all, as Dickens says, we're all fellow passengers to the grave. Mm-hmm. We should be in this together, right? And I really want us to put a ding in the universe. I've stolen that shamelessly from Apple, but that's kind of my mantra for life, is we should be making a ding in the universe, whether that's in our small little world, in our family group, in our friendship group, in our school, or wider if you get the chance. Like, just go and start knocking it out of the park. That's what we should be trying to do. And so, policies don't do that.
So you have your leaders, you are a leader yourself, and then you're talking about, well, as we said, don't be a dick as a leader.
Yeah.
And so, but then there is also, I was just going to say that you have created structured training for your leaders, and what was missing from more traditional approaches.
Yeah.
And of course, how do we ensure leaders develop their own thinking rather than simply replicating yours or replicating the federation or the academy or the school that they are in? Because obviously there is going to be some ideas and perceptions about the federation that you and I are part of, and there could be sometimes an understanding of, or maybe in some academies might be the case where we go in with all guns blazing, get rid of people, and then we just bring our own people and they have to do what we say. And it's not developing leaders having their own thinking and having their own culture and vision and just following and replicating what we have. So how can you ensure that leaders develop their own thinking rather than simply replicating yours or whatever the federation or academy that they're part of?
Crumbs, there's so much there, Mehmet. Right, so let me try and take this one at a time. Okay, key leadership mistake I think we can easily make is we try and create versions of ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you hire someone, or you acquire someone because you've joined a new team or whatever, and then you start getting really, really frustrated because they're not doing it like you would do it, or they're not as good as you would do it or you want them to do it in a certain way. And the better I get at this job, and the older in the tooth I get, the more I realize just that, I think I said it earlier, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so, but there is only one outcome, which is making it better. So as long as it's making it better, and a key component of making it better is also being sustainable, right? Is the thing to watch out for. But there are principles of leadership that we can apply regardless of what your style is, right? So principles of change leadership, for example, you can do the nitty gritty in different ways, but as long as you're following an overarching system, if you like, or tool. So let me come to the bit we said about going in and changing things when things need changing, etc. So what are the key leadership questions in terms of change? Because that's what leaders do. Like, leaders create change and navigate change. It is the whole job. The key question is, what is it time for now? And sometimes what it's time for now, because the school is metaphorically on fire, or literally in my case, one time was being on fire. Like, you don't, when the plane's on fire, right? You don't want, we're not having a democracy. We're not having a chat about what to do next, right? The person in charge, who's the pilot, and the person in charge of the cabin, who's, whatever we call that person, the steward, whatever we call them these days, is going to say, right, you do this, you sit down, you do this, everyone brace, whatever it might be. There's a time and a place for having this space for discussion, this space for growth. There's a time and a place for telling people what to do, and they just need to go and do it, right? When a school is in special measures and everything is chaotic and everything is everything is terrible, well, it's never everything, but it's usually nearly everything is needing work. Like, you open a metaphorical drawer and you go, oh my God, there's 3 months of work in there. So you have to be quite directive, because you're working at pace, and your children's lives, right? And for me, it's that dramatic, because it is, right? And so you need to fix stuff, and you need to do it fast. And sometimes you don't manage to carry everyone with you. When the school's then in a better place, now you can be more patient. And someone who, let's say someone who might not have kept up, and they've left for one way or another, they've voluntarily or otherwise, you might actually have more time and capacity to help that person grow and develop, and maybe they'll get better in a way that you just don't have time for. So there's definitely situational leadership. There's a time and a place for all of those styles. The problem comes when you overuse the wrong style. So when you think there's space and time for being gentle and inspiring and doing all that stuff in the time when the plane's on fire, and then vice versa when you've got someone still driving, and no one's making any decisions, no one's doing any growing, and you're 5 years down the line, and yes, your results might be great, but your staff are burning out, and no one knows how to do anything. So I've got two of my friends have become head teachers, and one, when she went to her new school, she was like, George, no one knows how to do anything. It's because the previous head teacher, great results, right, on paper, fantastic, outstanding school on paper, but she was responsible for all of the decisions. And in the other school, again, outstanding, amazing results. I said to him, dude, I was like, how'd you get the results you get? Like, your results are, 2 years in a row better than anything I've done. And so I just burn out my staff and then I get more. And I'm like, okay. And I remember saying to him, dude, I was like, that is not a sustainable model. And then, of course, he left, got another headship somewhere else where he's also a hero. Of course, what happened to the results? They just
plummeted.
Down. Yeah. So can't quite remember what your original question was there, but I think it was around essentially taking time to train staff in
and making sure that they actually become their own version of a leader rather than following what you are saying. Yeah,
exactly. And the last thing I'll say on this, and I think it's really important, and I'll actually take the opportunity to plug our company, or my wife's company, Leader Being. So Leader Being is called Leader Being. It's what it says on the tin. So what we do is we work on the being of leadership, not the doing of leadership. So when I do leadership development courses in my schools, of course that's run for free because obviously wouldn't be appropriate. But whenever I do any of this training, I don't personally train people how to run year 11, right, or how to run the physicality of a maths department or run a great scheme of work, right? That's all doing stuff. I employ people who know how to do that stuff, right? I'm no expert in that. I'm an expert in the being of leadership. So training leaders to understand how they show up in the world, to understand the influence they have on other people, and how to leverage that influence more skillfully, how to approach our day more consciously and intentionally, so that you can get the best out of everyone around you. And so our main, we do that in a variety of ways, but like in Leader Being, so we run a program called Essence. That's our kind of flagship program, and it's all about that. It's about the leadership of self, and it has a massive impact, because when you can lead yourself better, you can start leading other people better. That's the idea.
Great. By the way, guys, I just want to mention that this platform is actually provided to us with our Hachette Learning, and this is a place for inspiration for teachers, and they provide high quality teaching solutions and research-based books and resources, and I would recommend everyone to go and check them out. I actually use them in my CPDs when I run it for our department, and they're absolutely great. So while we're talking about training staff, and I just want to touch on training staff and leadership, then leads on to routines in schools. I just want to touch on a few things and just get your opinion on it, because we do hear these things and we do read about them in certain researches. What is your take on things like silent corridors, students going to toilets during lesson time? So we have silent corridors, students going to toilet breaks during lesson time, and perhaps we can also talk about slant. So these are the routines that certain schools actually use.
Okay, so first of all, I would never tell another head teacher how to run their schools. I have an opinion, of course I do. We all have a natural style, and we all have to leverage the things that are strengths for us. So rather than looking for, we must always work on our weaknesses. We want to work on our strengths. So if the stuff that works in the school, I'm like, yeah, you go do you, right? It's totally fine. Now, to take each of those in terms. So silent corridors. I can see. I totally see the allure of it, and like I say, it might work in some schools. I'm not a fan. None of my schools have them. I want kids to come out talking about whatever they want to talk about. It really, really, really makes me happy when I hear, it's usually older kids, but coming out of a lesson talking about, did you get the answer right to that one? I couldn't get that one. And they're talking about a maths equation or whatever. Like, I love that. It really makes my heart sing. But also if they're talking about the football or they're talking about whatever, it's totally fine. But I can see the point. If you're trying to create order and you're trying to maintain focus and control and all that, ultimately, if you take a school like Michaela, I actually don't know if Michaela's got silent corridors or not, but let's say we did. At the end of the day, when you speak to kids who go to Michaela, they could not be more effervescent about that school, right? And yes, she might be called the strictest head teacher in England. Well, I'd send my kids there. Have you seen the results that they get? Oh my God, some of the best results in the entire country. Have you seen what those kids achieve and where they go and what they can do with their lives?
Yeah,
they come from some of the poorest areas of London. So, but like that, if that's part of their DNA, and like I say, just a caveat, I don't know if that's what they do. Then great, go for it. I'm not a fan, but that's not to say you shouldn't do it. Toilets. Hey, listen, you gotta have control in a school. Children take the mickey, even lovely kids, right? Kids are kids. Like, you were a kid once, Mehmet. So was I. Yeah. I was a little. I mean, I was like horrible. I was really naughty. I was kind of that. I was that really cheeky, chappy, annoying kid that still did really well in tests, even though they did nothing and wound teachers up the whole time. So I was really annoying. Anyway, listen. Kids should have toilet passes, or they should call on call and someone comes in and escorts them to the toilet. Otherwise, you end up with 100 kids at a lesson and they agree to meet up and vape and muck around and walk around together. So if you've got even a vaguely tough school, I just wouldn't allow it. And to be honest, if kids are out willy-nilly in a really nice leafy school, you're probably coasting. And it's probably a sign that I would look for. One of the things that I actually do in a school as soon as I go in is I stand near the toilets halfway through a period. And I just stand there and I look at how many kids are at a lesson just wandering around, because they don't just go to the toilet and come back. They wander around like really nice kids. Because why wouldn't you? Because no one's on top of you. And of course, from time to time, very controversial. And a teacher gets it wrong. They can't, because teachers do get it wrong sometimes. Some teachers aren't very good at reading body language, and you get a poor wee soul who's absolutely desperate, or a girl who's very embarrassed for whatever reason, and they just don't get the nuance that the kid's getting really angry or upset, and you just say let them go to the toilet or call on call, whatever it is, and they make them stay, and then there's an accident and it's a disaster and the parents are furious, and of course they're furious. I would be furious, but the flip side is that it's chaos. So that's toilets. Slant. What's wrong with slant? I can't remember what it stands for. Was it sit up? Was it sit up, listen?
Sit up, listen. And I actually don't know what it fully stands for. It's basically just sitting up, listening, and just paying attention, being attentive.
Eye contact. Look, yeah. I mean, look. Do you want to do the podcast like this?
No.
I mean, what are we doing here? What are we getting cross about? It's just compliance. Like, compliance is fine. Kids are, you can have slant, crack a joke, and have them all howling in laughter, right?
Yeah.
I'm a sort of Dead Poet Society type teacher. I'm standing on the desk and I'm doing funny stuff, and
I've seen.
They're learning, right? And I am super strict. And a great teacher can turn it on, and then be smiling straight afterwards, and the kids get it. Right, and they're listening, and they're getting great progress. So, I think slant's fine, and it can help teachers. I just think it has to be reasonable, and teachers need to be nice. Like, you can call slant without breaking the number one rule of leadership, right? So you can still do it while being nice and while being strict and while having high expectations.
So we have. I just looked for it because we don't use it in our schools, but we don't. The reason why we don't use it, I just want to emphasize that we don't need to use it, because we have a culture of our students actually sitting up and listening to us. But it for our viewers, it stands for sit up straight, lean forward slightly, ask and answer questions, nod your head, and track the speaker.
Track the speaker is you would do that in your school, in the drama department, for example. They are rabid about track the speaker. It's part of the drama culture. You must track the speaker, and kids get a warning if they've not tracked the speaker. So I mind less personally, I actually doodle while I'm listening. It's part of my MO. It helps me concentrate, and I might write a keyword down or whatever. So I don't. But as an experienced teacher, I can tell who's not listening, and I'll throw questions at them to keep them away, to keep them focused. And so I think a skillful teacher uses whatever approach they need to get kids' attention, because ultimately that's all you need. You need children's attention, and you need to make their brains hurt, and you need to make them enjoy it. So that's the skill. However you do it, hey, mi casa y su casa. It's all good.
So all of these routine structures and options that people can have. So you're obviously leading across so many schools. As you were explaining all these things to me, I was just thinking about all the other schools as well that you're part of and you're leading. And I was thinking, what becomes more challenging when leading across multiple schools?
I can answer that really easily, mate. It's as soon as I became an executive head, well, actually, it's funny, being executive head of 2 schools was different than 1, but not really, because you can do one school in the morning, the other school in the afternoon. It's actually fine. 3 is suddenly different. 5 is different again, even though when I went to 5, I was like, oh, it's just the same as before. And then 6. So running 6 is the same as running 5. And now I'm running 10, and it's different, again. But the core problem of being an executive leader or a systems leader, as we call it in coaching, is this question: what do you do all day? How do you decide? Right, that's the key thing. And it's genuinely really hard. Like, where do you spend your energy? There's so many things you could do, and there's therefore 100 things that you need to decide that you don't do. And so, where do you spend your time, and what do you spend your time doing? And how do you make sure you're doing the highest leverage thing that you can do? I spent half my life feeling guilty because it's taken me. It's much better now because I've been doing it several years now. But when I was first overseeing 3 schools, like, I would feel really guilty because I am I know I can have an impact when I go in operational and I'm bossing corridors and classrooms and doing stuff. I know I can have an impact on the school. And it took me ages to realize I was actually making it worse, right? So someone would say to me in one of my schools, "Oh, George, behavior is really going downhill since you've not been here as much, and we've got a big problem with behavior, and everyone's really upset about it." And I go, right, fine. That's clearly a priority. So I'd go into that school and I get stuck in, right, let's go. Here's what we're doing. And I'd change all the stuff, not change all the stuff, but just to make the stuff that should be happening already actually make it happen, right? Big impact. People are like, oh, wow, really, things feel a lot better. But what was actually happening was I was causing real problems for the senior team, because all that happens is you get resentment of the senior team, the existing team, because you're like, oh, George McMillan's here. He's going to come and rescue us. And then the reputation of that team goes down and down and down because George McMillan's the big hero, which I like, by the way. Of course I do. I've got an ego like everyone else. And then but I can't sustain it because there's other priorities. So then I leave, and then of course behavior goes down again. And I've made it worse because now, it's George McMillan's not here. Of course it's not going to go right. And so it took me a long time to realize that I need to lead through others now, right? I need to not be operational. So I actually don't do break duties and lunch duties. I don't do on calls anymore. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. I talk to kids lots, and I do the occasional on call stuff, of course, and I do some corrective stuff. But I'm not fully operational like I was previously, because that's not the job. So you have to ask yourself, what am I doing all day? And what is the highest leverage thing? And come to terms with the fact that you are now being paid for your brain. You're being paid for your being, not your doing. It is no longer the doing. You're no longer the person doing the stuff and getting the plaudits. You're now the person in the background, never taking the plaudits for anything, stepping forward and saying, it's my fault when things go wrong. So you only you take the blame.
That is the biggest one. Yeah.
Well, you know me, I like being a hero, right? So I find that quite difficult, and I have to remind myself that it's really, really important. I'm finding that increasingly that's the thing that works. And actually, when I step back and I have great coaching conversations and I ask curious questions about what's going on, that's the biggest impact I'm having now. So my brain, some element of wisdom that I've had from making a zillion mistakes in my career, is the thing I currently get paid for, I feel.
Great. So we are coming to an end of our show, but I wanted to ask you a question, because just reflecting on all of the things that you were just talking about, I was thinking to myself, if George Macmillan was to go back to George Macmillan, who started teaching on the first day, what would he tell him now?
Ooh, that's a great question. Well, stick in. I think the thing that you and I learn after many years, I can't remember how many years you've been in the game, Mehmet, but it's quite a few, right?
Yeah.
How many are you in now?
11 now.
You're 11 in. You're 11 in. I'm 25 in. Okay, so it's peaks and troughs, right? So a year is a peak and is peaks and troughs, and how it is now is not how it's going to be. This too shall pass. I've learned that results, whether they're good or bad, are never as good as you think they are until you get context, until you understand where the benchmarking is. Like I remember us dipping by 10% one year, me being at the soles of my feet, thinking I was going to have to resign. And then Progress 8 came in. It was the first year ever of Progress 8. And we were like plus 0.7, something like that, or plus 0.6. It was amazing, top 10% of the country. And I was like, oh, such a lesson. And similarly, when you think they're terrible, they're not as terrible as they are. And when you think they're great, there's always someone better than you. So wind your neck in, just take the rough with the smooth. And then the same with years. Like you get a year or two where you think you want to jack it in. And then something changes and suddenly you're on fire again and things are great. Sometimes you need to change a scene. Sometimes you need to change schools or change type of school. Go in, test out a girls' school or a boys' school or just a sixth form or whatever. Don't jump too soon, right? Because there's learning to be had when things are tough. That's when you really learn how, when it's stormy, that's when you learn how to sail. Find a great mentor. I've said that earlier. Definitely. I didn't have one for 6 years. And if you're miserable and things are really, really dysfunctional and it's awful, leave. Right? If there's no light at the end of the tunnel, there's lots of schools out there that are wonderful, wonderful places. Teaching is a wonderful career. I would not do any. Turning back the clock, I wouldn't do anything else. I've had a great time. I've had a great career. I've had some real tragedies. I've dealt with some very, very, very difficult stuff, but I wouldn't change it for the work. Well, it changes tragedies, but I wouldn't change the career at all. It's been wonderful, and I would highly recommend it. But I'll say one last thing about teaching. Teaching is highly technical. To be a good teacher is a technically demanding job, and it's emotionally demanding and it's socially demanding, and not everyone can do it. We need to stop romanticizing teachers as if just because you're a teacher, somehow you should be trusted to do it, and somehow you're going to be brilliant because you've got the badge of teacher. I'm like, what? Teaching's hard. You can just go and trust a brain surgeon to go and be a brain surgeon. It's like, what are you talking about? It's a really technically difficult job. So let's not pretend that it's not. Let's start patting ourselves on the back for the really hard job we do, because it's actually difficult to do. Otherwise, we would just grab any old Joe from the street and say, "Oh, just come and teach maths," wouldn't we? Right? There's a skill, and there's a skill to different. You taught me how to teach maths as an English teacher. Yeah. Right. So I remember those days very fondly, but it was still really difficult, and there's a skill to it. So, well done, everyone that's teachers. Is great. Continue to get better. Take the rough with the smooth. This too shall pass, whether it's good or whether it's bad. Stay in the game, and you're doing a great job. Like, we're fighting the good fight. And so, just ignore the budgets and all the crap and the doom and the gloom. Have a good laugh with teenagers or small children. I don't know how you guys do it. If you're in primary teaching, what?
Primary schools, yeah.
Miracle workers. I don't know how you guys do it. It's much harder than secondary. So well done you.
Thank you, George. This was a honor and privilege for me to have you on the program. Thank you very much. I'm pretty sure the Teacher Talk Radio family is actually really happy to have you on here as well. So thank you very much, and we shall see you again, and hopefully I might just have you for another program to talk about something else.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Hey, listen, happy to talk again. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
You've been listening to Teachers Talk Radio. Tune in live and listen back at ttradio.org. We look forward to hearing from you next time on Teachers Talk Radio.